Welcome back to Fox Soul's Black Report, your daily source for Black news, views, and opinions. Joining us now to discuss the Derek Chauvin trial and the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act of 2020 is the Honorable Congressmember Karen Bass. Welcome back to Fox Soul's Black Report, Congresswoman Bass. How are you?
I'm doing fine, and thank you for having me back.
Absolutely. Let's just jump right into it. So the House passed the George Floyd Policing Act this month. Can you tell our soulmates what the act plans to accomplish?
Absolutely. Well, the first and most important part of the act holds police officers like Derek Chauvin accountable. Number one, by allowing individual citizens to sue police officers. And number two, to reducing the standards in which they're prosecuted. Let me give you an example.
Okay.
The whole world watched him, Derek Chauvin, with his knee on George Floyd's neck. Mm-hmm. Right now, what the law says is that we have to prove that he intended to kill him. What we say is whether he intended it or not, putting your knee on someone's neck for 9 minutes results in death, and you should know better. So you are reckless. We want to lower the standard, which is why you see officers very, very rarely prosecuted. The other part of the bill really raises the standards for policing. Mm-hmm. So, for example, there are no national standards. Mm-hmm. So in one city or state, chokeholds might be legal, and in another city or state, they might not be. We believe that police officers and police departments should be accredited. So the person that does your hair or repairs your roof has to be accredited and licensed. You would think that a profession that has the ability to take your freedom and your life would have to have accreditation. And then the final part of the bill provides grants to communities to re-envision policing and re-envision public safety.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask you a question about qualified immunity in a couple of minutes. But the bill currently sits in the Senate. What are the odds that it's going to pass?
Well, I think first of all, it is normal for a bill to pass one house, go to the other house, mm-hmm. and undergo changes.
Yeah.
So I do believe in order for the bill to pass, that the Senate will more than likely make changes to the bill. And so we will see. I am very optimistic that we will get a bill on President Biden's desk because President Biden is also calling for it.
Right. There is obviously a lot of Republican pushback. They have called this a defund the police bill. What is your response to that?
Well, I think that's silly. I think that my Republican colleagues know that saying it defunds the police gets people frightened. They used it in the elections. And so I think they call anything that brings about changes in policing as defunding the police.
You know, there has been a lot of rhetoric about the name, the phrase, defund the police. Even Obama jumped into the fray and he talked about word politics and that sort of thing. So what are your thoughts about defunding the police, the phrase itself and the concept?
Well, let me just tell you that what I say is refund the communities, mm-hmm. because I believe that what is at the heart of it is that we have defunded communities over the years, especially the last 30 years. We've cut back on social service supports, we've cut back on drug treatment, mental illness, etc. And then we leave police to pick up the pieces. So for example, if you review officer-involved shootings, especially officer-involved shootings that result in death, a significant percentage of those people that were killed were in the middle of a mental health crisis. Now, the tragedy in our country is because we have not invested in the health of our people, we essentially incarcerate and execute people who are mentally ill. That is a tragedy. So again, I look at addressing the root causes, and I absolutely believe that that is the most important thing that we can do, is to refund the communities. But at the same time, I believe we also need to fundamentally transform policing. I don't think the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act is the end all. I would view it as a significant step in the right direction.
It's interesting that you say that it's not the end all, that it's a significant step, because my next question was going to be about Black Lives Matter. They have said that the bill doesn't go far enough. Have you worked with organizations like BLM when it came to creating the bill?
Well, absolutely. And let me just tell you, I agree with Black Lives Matter. It doesn't go far enough.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, where are we at this moment in history? I would absolutely like to go further, but I don't believe further is politically possible right this minute. Now, in lieu of that, I don't want to do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely want to move the ball forward, but there's no way I would say that if the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, completely as it is right now, as it passed the House, if it's signed by President Biden, then we've done all we need to do on policing. I would never, ever say that. Much more needs to be done.
Right. Let's switch gears and go back to qualified immunity. Now, so New York just canceled qualified immunity, which was major. And one of the things that critics say about canceling qualified immunity is that it's going to be a lot more difficult to basically find people willing to put their lives on the line to be a part of a part of law enforcement. What are your thoughts on qualified immunity, and and how was it addressed in the bill specifically?
Well, first of all, in the bill that passed the House, qualified immunity is removed from police officers. Now, what that means is that then a police officer can be sued for excessive force. So what I feel about it is that I feel that policing should be like any other profession. And so let's just take the medical field, because that's my background. As a former medical professional, if I committed malpractice, the public would know about it and I could be sued. Now, that's what malpractice insurance is for. Mm-hmm. And so the policing is a profession, again, that can take away your freedom and take away your life. A doctor, frankly, making egregious mistakes can also take away your life. Doctors can be sued. Mm-hmm. So I don't see how you would make a fundamental difference with policing.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. We spoke about qualified immunity and, about the story that New York is the first state or city to cancel it. And that was one of the things that I had said is the fact that with any other profession, there is a consequence for malfeasance or malpractice. There is consequences, and policing is the only one where they have this overwhelming authority over our lives and whether or not we live or die once we interact with them, and there is no penalty to pay. So I wholeheartedly agree with you. It's obvious that you are extraordinarily passionate about this, but I just want to ask you, from your own words, why was it so important for you to make this bill happen?
Well, for me personally, I've been involved in this issue for for 47 years. I mean, in 1973, in Los Angeles, I was in an organization called the Coalition Against Police Abuse. I have personally undergone harassment. I have seen Los Angeles Police Department. It's better now. I mean, it still has a ton of issues, but it's better than it was back in the day. This is something that our people have been fighting for over 100 years. Mm-hmm. At some point, will people recognize that policing is different in communities of color? Now, I represent a district in Los Angeles that there's neighborhoods that are very affluent and actually majority white. And then I represent South Central Los Angeles. They're governed by the same police department. On one side of town, the police go in and they protect and they serve that community. On the other side of town, not all of the police officers, but too many of them view like they're in a war zone and everybody that lives there is suspect. Those are two qualitative different types of policing. One is a guardian mentality and the other one is a warrior mentality. Mm-hmm. I think that police should protect and serve and be guardians regardless of where they are.
Your career spans, like you said, you basically almost, if not 4 decades, and change seems to have change seems to come at such a glacial pace. And, you know, for me, your Constitution is admirable, Congresswoman. I just had to say that to you. What can the community do at large to support the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act?
Well, you know, we have this wonderful tool of social media, and it would be great if people would be involved in social media, but talking about the substance of the bill. So it is wonderful to see people say, you know, say their names, Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery, and obviously George Floyd. But how about tweeting and getting on social media and say ban chokeholds, ban no-knock warrants, you know, to talk about the substance. Police officers should be prosecuted. Support the George Floyd Justice and Policing Bill. That social media involvement does have an impact. We need the Senate to know that this bill needs to pass. Here we are in the middle of the Derek Chauvin trial, and we need to show the general public that we can do something about policing. Otherwise, people are left hopeless. And it's my responsibility as a member of Congress. I have to address that hopelessness. It's my responsibility to do everything I can to make sure that this bill passes.
Okay, so in addition to posting, you know, ban chokeholds, ban no-knock warrants, do we, as community members, do we make it a point to reach out to our members of Congress, to our senators?
Senators.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, regardless of where you come from, because even if you come from a state where I know where they support the bill, you know, 100%, they still need to hear from you. Because when they get attacked by people who are against the bill, they need to be able to say, well, thousands of my constituents called and said they want to see me on this bill. So don't think just because your senator supports the bill that you don't need to reach out to them. You do.
Okay. All right. I want to make the soulmates understand exactly what they need to do to continue to participate in, you know, in things that affect their daily lives. You know, we saw incredible results from the election, which are now, you know, kind of coming under fire with the Georgia, you know, voting suppression act that just happened. So I want our soulmates to continuously understand how they can participate in, you know, in community activism. And just one last question. We're talking a lot about Derek Chauvin's trial. And this is a scary question to pose for you. What do you think will happen if he's acquitted?
I worry. I worry what will happen. I worry what will happen in our cities.
I do too. I really do too. I honestly do too.
I was in Los Angeles in 1992.
Yeah. I think that it will be 20 times worse. Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Congresswoman. I cannot thank you enough for your time. I know how valuable it is, and we are going to, you know, we're going to keep the charge going for you.
Thank you.
All right.
I appreciate that very much.
Okay. Take care.